This video is for anyone who is a professional in a career, has some sort of a skill, and wants to pivot and go remote. It isn't as hard as you think to pivot. Okay, I want to talk to you about remote work today. Specifically, I want to talk to you about how do you take a skill that you have and pivot so that it can be done remotely. But first of all, let's talk about why you might want to do that. Why you might want to get out of the 9 to 5. Obviously, you may have your personal reasons. You may be tired of the commute. You may be tired of your time not being yours and belonging to someone else. All of those things are completely valid. Maybe you want to leave the United States. Also valid. I also did that. But here's the thing, okay? Here's the thing, and I don't think I fully realized when I left the United States. It is so much cheaper to live outside of the United States. That's number one, okay? The United States was cheaper when I left it, and now it is considerably more expensive. I currently have an apartment in Albania that is right on the sea. It's 2 bedrooms. It's newly renovated. It's gorgeous. I pay 550 euro a month, so like 570 US dollars. That's my rent. My electricity and my water all together in the highest months has never exceeded 70 euro. The thing is, not that you can't work hard and afford the United States, but if you can take your income and make it remote and go somewhere else, like your money is going to go so much further, which means retirement is going to come faster. It means your savings is going to grow faster. Your investments are going to grow faster. If you have children, they're going to be set up a lot better. Honestly, this is something I wish I did much earlier, because I had no idea how much money I was just pouring into just keeping a roof over my head in the United States. So that's one, is cost of living is considerably cheaper elsewhere. Healthcare is more affordable elsewhere. I just heard of when you get residency in Albania, you do pay like $120, $130 a month into the government, and that covers your healthcare. Okay, that is so much cheaper than United States insurance. Now, healthcare in Albania is not quite as, the infrastructure is not quite there, right? But I heard of an expat recently. They cut their hand really deep and they went to the hospital. It was taken care of promptly and it was free. So the healthcare situation can be much better elsewhere. You're not necessarily going to get the level of standard of healthcare in the United States elsewhere, but you're hopefully not going to die. Do you know what I'm saying? Food is fresher. There are more regulations. They just allow a tremendous amount of crap into our food system in the United States. And it's not that they don't allow crap in other countries. They do, okay? They have red dye over here. It's just not red dye 40. It's called something else. But generally, it's much healthier. Also, there's a different mentality towards food, which can actually take some adjusting as an American, some adjusting to, but food is fresher, ingredients are simpler, and you just generally end up feeling much healthier because of it. Another reason you might want to go is it is a much slower pace of life, okay? This can be frustrating if you're used to like higher speed, higher efficiency, but you know, the Italians call it dolce far niente. It's the sweetness of doing nothing, and it's a much slower pace of life. It's a much more balanced life. Sometimes the balance shifts like really hard in the other direction, right? I like a balance of like ambition and work and goals, and then a slower pace and friends and family. Sometimes it shifts like really hard the other way, but you know, you get a much less stressful balance in life. Public transportation makes things easier. You're not driving all the time. I haven't driven a car in over a year, and there's been a couple times where I wish I had a car, but for the most part, I don't need one. Cities are walkable, and the whole thing just makes life feel better. Like it just feels better. It feels less stressful. It doesn't feel like life has you like by the ankles and is emptying your pockets and stressing you out constantly. Another reason is I have found dating to be way better out of the US. There are places in the world that are comparable to the US, but there are a lot of places where there is much, much, much more respect towards women. And even places that you hear are, oh, they're super misogynistic, oh, they're super patriarchal, maybe they are, they still respect women more than they are respected in the United States. And that is a hill I will die on. I will never go back to the United States to date American men. So there are lots of reasons why you might want to leave. I didn't even touch on political reasons. I won't get into political reasons. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Wherever you may fall in the political spectrum of things, you might not want to be in the United States. Now, how to remote work is a topic I address a lot, but specifically in this video, I want to talk about how do you pivot? Like, how do you take a skill that you've had, a career that you've had, and just sidestep into something that can be done remotely? And it is not as hard as you think. It is something I did myself. So we're going to get into that. Now, there's 3 categories or 3 buckets that I kind of like to put this into, right? So there's doing the skill itself, and as long as that is a skill that can be done remotely, then that fits nicely into the bucket. You can do it yourself. Another thing you can do is you can take your knowledge and you can teach other people who want to do that skill how to do it. Bonus, if you can also teach them how to make money doing it. Then the third is by teaching the people who have that problem, like maybe there are people who would hire you to do that skill, teaching those people how to do it better, how to have systems around it, how to solve problems that consistently recur. So let me give you an example. I was in medical billing. I had my billing service that I did from home. So that right there already is remote work. That can be done remotely. I still do that sometimes. I still teach people how to do that. Then I sidestepped and I added to that teaching other people how to start a medical billing service. So now I've got my medical billing service and I'm teaching people who also want to do what I do, essentially, who want to copy what I've done and do it themselves. Okay, that's bucket number 2. The third thing that you can do is you can go, okay, so I do medical billing, but there's other problems around medical billing in my clients' offices. Like sometimes they don't want to have to outsource it, or sometimes there's other problems that make my job as a medical biller difficult and cumbersome and make it more difficult and cumbersome for them. So I can consult and I can teach in that bucket of things. So that kind of gets you started if you start thinking in terms of those buckets. Now, how do you find where to go? Right now, doing the skill, that one's pretty obvious. But when you start looking at, okay, well, what can I teach? You want to start looking at what problem exists that I can solve, right? And sometimes, you can sidestep. So let's say, for example, you were in human resources in a big American corporation. And you've been doing that for the last 10 years. What you'd want to do is take a step back and go like, okay, what are consistent problems that I had as a human resource director? What problems came up repeatedly that if I could solve those problems or teach people how to solve those problems, it would drastically improve human resource departments all over the United States. Right? So now you take your 10 years, your 15 years, your whatever skill in that area, and you go like, okay, I could actually look for what I call white space, right? A space where there's problems that aren't being solved and solve them. And I can do it from Tahiti. Do you understand where I'm going with this, right? That is something that I highly recommend, because once you can do the skill, and that takes whatever time it takes to do the skill. When you can teach the skill, now you're getting some of your time back. You're getting a lot of your time back, because you could teach it one-on-one, you can consult one-on-one, but you can also put together resources. You can put together courses, you can write a book, you can put together videos, all sorts of education on how to solve the problems in that field that you are aware of. Another example, let's say maybe you ran a bakery for 15 years and you know how to do it successfully, and you know what problems people run into, and you know how to source good ingredients, and you found a system that helps you get like reliable employees, and each one of those things, by the way, can be like really narrowed down on and turned into something that you can make money on. Just how to source quality ingredients affordably would be an excellent thing to teach people. How to hire reliable, competent employees. Oh my God, you could sell that to so many people, not just bakeries. You can take something that you required your physical presence, take the knowledge, take the skill that you learned over the years, and then make that essentially your digital product that can now be brought to the market in a way that you can do it remotely. Now, there are a few really important parts of this, particularly now in the current environment where people are making like AI courses and you never really know, like, is information worth it? Is it not worth it? I'm going to give you a few tips that are essential to like kind of building out this training. I'm going to put them in my Substack. We're going to go further into depth over in my Substack. But there are what I have found very key elements that really bring that training to life in a way that is not only profitable for you, but extremely beneficial for the people that you are providing the information for. Okay, a couple tips, because I know that sometimes this can be a little bit difficult to kind of figure out, okay, where am I going with this? So one is ask yourself, first of all, what am I good at? Okay, what am I good at? So you might say, well, I'm a great baker. Okay, but narrow it down. I'm really good at sourcing ingredients. I'm really excellent at, a particular type of baked good, or, oh, you know what? I was always the one that really would go to the front desk when there was upset customers, and I was just excellent at calming that whole situation down and making them happy. That alone is a skill that is absolutely vital. The next thing you want to ask yourself is, what would have made my life easier as a human resources director, as a baker, as a billing service owner? What would have made my life easier? For me as a billing service owner, if the office themselves had learned particular systems and organization and had basic understandings of certain things that related to billing, oh my gosh, it would have made my life so much easier, and they would have made more money. So things like that. And then ask, who would I have hired to solve a problem for me? Maybe you had a bakery and maybe you really struggled to find like a really good ingredient source, or maybe like upset customers were like, you just dreaded it because you didn't like dealing with it. Figure out who you would have, like if you would have gone, oof, and pushed that off your plate and been so happy to give that to someone else, that's a very good path to look down. One really key thing that I want you to take to heart is you're going to start to brainstorm this when you come up with something that you are ready to bring to the market. One of the biggest mistakes that I see people make is they create it first. They go like, okay, I'm going to create this whole course, and I'm going to have all the elements that Jessica said in her Substack are going to make this like really successful and really helpful for people. And then they get to the end and they've spent all this time and it doesn't sell. Okay. So what you want to do is, I have a very specific process that I go through that tells me whether it's going to be successful before I invest the time into it. And that is something that you want to do. I will get into that again in my Substack. Like, we're going to deep dive into this more into my Substack. So I'll put that. I don't think I can actually link yet. So maybe I'll put it on the video on how to find my Substack. But yeah, you don't invest all this time into something that the market doesn't want. Okay. You want to figure out how you can present it so that they understand that they need it. Right? And you want to test those things before you build this whole long, career pivot. Test those things first. I'm going to tell you how to do it. It's not that difficult, but please, 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 like, I know that there are a lot of people that are very go at it yourself. I'm one of those people. I'm just warning you, test it first. Test the idea first, sell it first, and then create it. Last note is I just want to point out that sometimes we took on careers that were never really authentic to us. We took on paths that we had to out of sheer survival, and they're not necessarily what we would have chosen. Figuring out a way to extract yourself out of that work environment, out of that 9 to 5, out of the constraints that career puts on you, and shift it into something that can be done remotely, that can free up your time, allows you to pivot. It's this kind of beautiful bridge that takes you from the thing that you had to do and then pivots you and gives you this bridge where you could potentially move over into something that you really are passionate about and that you really love doing. And what you'll probably find is by the time you've built that bridge, you're not going to want to let it go, because the idea is that it's not something that takes a bunch of your time, and it is something that you can kind of have running in the background that can just sort of be cash flow that is valuable to people. I'm not interested in like creating things that are like don't have value that people are gonna, I've bought a few of those things myself, like these digital products where it like sounds good and then I download it and I'm like, this was not worth it. This was 100% not worth it, right? We don't want to create things like that. We really don't want to create things like that. But this can be a beautiful bridge from that thing that you had to do, and can bridge you over into the thing that you would really rather be doing, or the thing that you're passionate about. Okay, so don't think that necessarily has to be the end game, because I got stuck on that for a long time where it was like, okay, but I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. You don't have to, but it is a beautiful bridge over into the thing that you would really rather be doing. And lastly, I want you to think about how you get paid, okay? Because how you structure your payments, one, should complement your personality, and two, should help give you a sense of security and stability. So let me give you an example. There are people that get into multi-level marketing, at-home type things, where they're consistently having to sell things to people, okay? And there's nothing wrong with being someone who sells things to people. But there is something wrong with that if you don't like it, if that's not your personality, if you don't want to have to wake up every week and go, where is my money coming from this week? So that was like, for example, that was one of the reasons why I liked medical billing, was because my clients are on a contract. I close a client and I have them for at least a year. That's a year's worth of income. I don't have to worry about that. Is better security than some jobs. Another thing is like, would you rather have high ticket sales and work more intensively with a couple people? Or would you rather maybe invest in some advertising and have a lot of small ticket items, right? Like, these are all factors that play into your personality, play into your ideal scenario. If somebody's upset with you, do you want to just click refund on a $47 product and be done with them? Or do you want to, maybe if that's a bigger dollar commitment, you need to work with them a little bit more? Like, these are all things you need to think about. These are all things that very much matter. It's a mistake to go, okay, well, I just want to leave the US. I just want this amount of money a year. Like, you really need to figure out what it is that you're trying to do. Like, what is the life that you're trying to build? And then you need to take a good look at who you are and where your strengths are and where your weaknesses are, and where are the things that you don't want to be doing, right? And we are so conditioned to suck it up and do those things anyway, that it actually took even me a really long time to go like, wait a second, like, I don't actually have to do this. Like, I could restructure my whole business model and not have to deal with this thing I don't want to deal with. So that's something that you want to spend some time on. You actually want to, and in some cases, In a lot of cases, it's a good idea to talk to somebody who's doing it so that they can kind of give you an idea. But know that, you are gonna pivot. Like, you are gonna get involved, and you're gonna get building, and you're gonna get going, and then you're gonna go, oh, I did not see this coming, and I don't like it. And you're gonna need to restructure. But as best as you can, try to, and if you don't want to do sales all the time, don't build something that requires you to do sales all the time. Build something where you can put your clients on a contract, and then you're assured income every month or every quarter or every week or whatever that structure is. The last thing I'm going to leave you with is possibly the most important thing, and that is you really need to sit down and you need to figure out if you could live a life that was designed exactly the way that you wanted it to be designed. What would that look like? Okay, and you need to allow yourself to imagine things that you don't think are possible. Okay, you need to really give yourself hours, days, weeks to really envision the kind of life that would make you happy. For me, it was the freedom to move. It was the freedom to travel. I've been able to fill in like little other needs and wants in there. But because I have had a pretty clear concept about the life that I wanted, it didn't matter that as a single mom with 2 young children who was broke and, going through like a nasty divorce, like it didn't matter that it felt impossible at that time. The important thing was that I knew what I wanted. So I was able to continue to keep my heart on that goal and guide my life in that direction. So I really encourage you to, decide today that you are going to design a life that you actually love and that loves you back, And really allow yourself to imagine what that would be. Would you be in the United States? Would you be out of the United States? How many hours a day would you work? Is there a particular area that you are particularly passionate about? Do you want freedom to move and travel, or do you just want to be cozy somewhere? Are you living in a city that the only reason you're living there is because this is where your work is, and if you really had your way, you'd be out in like a cute little cottage on a farm with like a cat and tomato plants? Like really allow yourself to envision what that life would look like. Because once you grab that, and once that is a part of you, that is a piece of you. So once you really allow yourself to see that part of you, and to love that part of you, and to honor that part of you, and to decide that that part of you is an important part to honor and to nurture, your whole life is going to start to change. And all the mechanics are going to start to work themselves out. But if you don't do that first, it's going to feel very much like you're just in a hamster wheel, and you're going to end up chasing things that don't really matter. You're going to end up chasing a certain salary amount, or you're going to end up just running because you hate where you are, but you don't really know where you want to go. And it actually leaves you in such a vulnerable position to be used by others and to have your energy harvested by others. So if there's anything you take out of this video, it's that. Really, really sit down and honor what it is that you actually want, whether or not there's a little voice in your mind that tells you it's possible or it isn't possible. Okay? All right. I will, like I said, I deep dive everything on my Substack. That's where we have community. That's where I really, really get into it. And we can get into it on a much more personal level. You can ask questions. But I hope that this helps you. I hope that this gives you a good starting point. And yeah, here's to building a life and designing a life that you love and that loves you back.